All right, welcome into the live stream today. We're going to jump into some tokens that might be good buys for now, and we'll see how all this flows out. Definitely as the market is starting to correct, and we're seeing some different signs. Today we'll break down maybe why Bitcoin is going the direction it's going, and also some of the tokens that might be going in another direction in a very short period of time. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to Tech Path. Let's dive into it today. Before we get started, just so everybody's clear, with Bitcoin in its corrective phase right now, obviously we're seeing Ethereum. There's a lot of things that are happening around the markets. Everything is kind of leaning into a couple of key indicators here. Obviously we have tax week coming up here in the US. You also have the CPI numbers coming out this week. Likelihood is we're going to see some pretty significant inflation. All of these things I think are playing into it. It is now post Bitcoin conference. The hangover is here. And I think we're starting to see some of the market correctiveness from the tech stocks also in traditional asset classes start to move as well. So just a couple of stories to give you guys kind of a framework of where this could stop maybe on this free fall and where it may correct. There's a lot of indicators here that could give us some signs as to the potential. This first story, Bitcoin could plunge to 30,000 by June. This is also saying that Ethereum could also have a little bit of trouble as they follow tech stocks down. Now, crypto platform, this is coming from BitMEX founder. And really, I think what his point is here is that he's leaning into Bitcoin and the crypto asset class tying very closely to what's been happening in the tech sector and also in traditional stocks. Now, remember that we've seen some pretty significant moves up with Bitcoin when tech stocks were still coming down. Now, granted, yes, we've seen a lot of fall off in terms of tech stocks themselves. We're starting to see layoffs in the tech sector, and we're also seeing a lot of these tech stocks that have really been just adjusting over the past 6 months. So I don't necessarily think that it has a direct relationship to it. I feel like it's got a direct relationship to the scenario that we may be facing with the inflationary scenario that pushes a little bit of caution into the investors. Because if you think about investors, they really haven't necessarily addressed the issue that I think Chairman Powell was trying to get investors to do in the early part of the year, and that was to slow the markets. And we've seen it again. I think Rand was reporting this over on Crypto Banner. He said, I think we're at 7% below the all-time high of where the market was, and that just wasn't necessarily enough, considered we bounced off of about a 15% decline. Now, what does that all that mean when we see this start to flow into Bitcoin? The factor is, if we start to see a major correction and fall off, especially with potential interest rates going up as much as 50 basis points, we may even see 75 basis points coming. Could that put a lot of pressure on Bitcoin, or could it push investors into Bitcoin? So there's two different angles that kind of flow into this. And I just want to show you an inflation calculator here to give you guys a feel of this, because this is going back in time. If you just looked at inflation between 2015 and 2019, you can kind of calculate this on your own. We were setting it around 8%, 7.9% during 2015 to 2019. Those were some pretty good days in terms of where the market had been moving and the fact that we were seeing such a market boom in that period of time. Now, if you jump up into pre-COVID of 2019 to 2022, and you calculate that, now we start moving up into 11%. So we're in double digits here, potentially could see the highest inflation numbers we've seen since the early 80s. So that has a lot of potential factor, because remember, when we've seen inflation numbers that high in the past, we didn't necessarily have asset classes that could respond to that, especially in global communities and global economies like what we're dealing with crypto, especially Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I think a lot of these could be a scenario where one of two things can happen, of course. We get a big inflation number, likelihood to happen, and that inflation has a direct impact maybe on Wall Street. Should that happen, and investors don't necessarily go into the bond market, they're going to be looking for returns somewhere. The likelihood is crypto could be the 0 point of really going in that direction. Remember though, legislation and regulation has limited traditional capital from moving into that space. So this is kind of a little bit of a quandary that we're facing right now with where this could go. This kind of goes back to my point. Fed could raise rates aggressively in the coming months. Many economists are saying this, and really what they're talking about here is right here. May and June tackle the runaway inflation increase to economists, but this is Reuters, who also say the probability of a recession now is about 40%. It was up a little bit because Reuters was reporting about 25 to 30%. Now they've increased that to 40% to a recession. Now, what could a recession look like? We've talked about it here on the show. Sometimes they can be very short-lived. We've seen recessions that are as short as 8 months and recessions that are as long as 3 years. So there's a lot that can factor into this as we start to see this play out. The real question is, where are the buys? Where are the potential bargains that we can look at? And some of these are going to be in the altcoins. Some of these are pretty traditional, but are they in a position to where you can dive back into them? We're going to dive into some of these tokens, give you guys some alpha on the data and also on the insights that we're looking at. Remember, these are market movers. The concept on all these are really to get you to think around these projects and just in crypto in general, to do a lot more deep dives and research. And when you do pick a project or a token, what you should do is really do your own due diligence, get in there. So not investment advice, but it does hopefully get you going in the right direction, hopefully give you some tools that helps you guys kind of find your way. Just as a reminder, here on this story right here, Luna Foundation Treasury holds almost 40,000 Bitcoin after weekend purchase. This was, of course, Do Kwon, again, going after 173 million worth of Bitcoin over the weekend. And again, Bitcoin is down a little bit. He looks a little sad there. But the point is that with Luna really starting to peg against Bitcoin, it is a really good move for Luna, and the likelihood is that Luna is and will hold out. Now, granted, is this a good time for Luna to potentially be looking at that as a buy? And I'd love to get your feedback, guys. Make sure and put your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Here was another story that was also related to Luna, and this one's kind of strategically kind of interesting. And this is their intention to buy 200 million worth of AVAX. And this is, they explain a little bit around it, but mainly what they were doing is collaboration with Avalanche to seek a former complete 100 million Luna AVAX token swap. Separately, Luna, another organization supporting the Terra blockchain, said it will mimic the move, so that gets them up to the 200 million. And then this means that UST will become AVAX, their native, and will also be minted and redeemed against AVAX on the Avalanche blockchain. Now, what that simply means is that Avalanche is using UST as their stablecoin. If you think about this in the essence of where this might roll out, the potential of Avalanche trying to create their own stablecoin or do something in that lane would be too expensive and also just too much energy consumed to try to do something like this. So I think this was a really good deal between the two. I'm kind of curious whether or not Do Kwon might try to do this more, because I'm a little concerned about, grabbing up too many of these side chains to become, kind of that supportive nature of what Bitcoin has been for Luna, and how does that compile? Now, I don't know that they plan to do this with a lot of chains, but it might be a handful of others that Do Kwon is maybe looking at. Now, what does that mean for Terra on the price? Obviously, we've seen the price of Luna go up. We've seen tremendous numbers back in December where Luna had run right up to $100, and we've seen this correction down here all the way into its low, which was back here in February at 47. Question is going to be whether or not we see this in the short term of where Luna is right now. And as you can kind of see right now, it's really at a bottom, trading at around $85 over the past month. So could we have wiped out all those gains? And could this potentially be a buying position? So this I'm watching very closely. This one, because I do hold Luna, and it's one of those that I did take some profit on, and then I trade in and out of Luna all the time. This may be a time where I'm looking to grab a little bit more of Luna and hold it for a period of time. So to me, this is probably more of a mid to long range hold, especially at the price that it's currently trading at, at around $85. So looking at that. But if we can get that somewhere around $80, I think that's where my position would be on trying to get in. Let's go over also to Solana, because Solana is another one that, though I am looking for an exit on Solana, I also look at these projects in short term, meaning I'm looking to make profit. I'll go in, do a side trade. And when I say a side trade, maybe it's a short term trade that maybe 30 days, maybe it's 3 weeks, maybe it's 2 weeks, depending on what's happening on the project. And also depending on what's happening in the market, Solana could have some definite impacts coming in. Obviously, they've got the NFT marketplace integration. Their DApp metrics are shining even after a 20% drop, which I think that only shows a consistency in the ecosystem for Solana. And that to me is a strong indicator of a token and its community, is when you have fall-offs in the marketplace and the DApp infrastructure and ecosystem still continue to do well. So I think that is a big factor here. And also their deposits, this is another thing, they're on decline. So this is one of those things that, again, I'm looking for when there is blood in the water. That is when it's the most painful for you to purchase on one of these projects is the best time. I found this time and time again. It's when you're most fearful of getting into these projects that you're most happy and glad that you did. And I've done it many times. It was risky. At the same time, I understood kind of where we were going. There is one thing, though, that is the caveat to this particular time and moment, and that is this inflationary system and what we're dealing with on conflict on the global scale. The other factor into this is when we look at Russia, China, and really the global economy as an entirety. Look at the United States, look at inflation starting to get out of hand, you look at interest rates starting to rise. These are the factors, the global economic pressures that you have to take into consideration. And that's why I'm a little bit more cautious, but I'm still looking for those opportunities, because I do believe at the end of the day, investors are always going to be investors. And what do? They're looking for returns. And returns are going to come from wherever they can work their magic to get into them. If it can't be the stock market or the bonds, could we see movement into the cryptocurrency market? And I think that's what we are going to see. Nifty News also launching their NFT collection, Magic Eden, also accepting Solana projects, tokens, and more. And I think even though many people will look at NFTs right now, have NFTs had their heyday, will we see these projects just become overpriced JPEGs and kind of flow down to zero? Or will a handful of these start to hold on? I still believe and am a big proponent of what we're going to see in the NFT market in terms of all things tokenized in the future. And I think as we see more projects moving into this direction and kind of supporting the NFT architecture and really going after different marketplaces, different dApps, and also different projects that are kind of creating and coming up with ideas, Solana, I think, could be one of the leaders out there. Polygon is the other one that I like, but Polygon is just so slow in terms of movement. And remember, the list today are projects that I like because I think they could see some short-term moves. And if you like them in a long-term play, it's a dual threat for you. But if you look at Solana's current price, trading at a 103, and again, down quite a bit over the last month right here. So you can kind of see its high right here where it pulled up to 141 on the 2nd. And it has plummeted right back down here to $102, so down 40%. This is what I'm looking for the short-term to long-term potential. So the last time it was there was back, looks like right here around end of March, right before it took its run. And if you look at its 1 year, you can kind of see this has this little dip right here. Could we see a little bit more of a dip? And again, Solana is one of those that has been in and out of my portfolio, but I still hold a big bag of this one. And it is one that I am looking that I will do an exit on Solana, but I'm looking for the right time. But at the same time, when there's really good prices, it's a great time to do a dollar cost average. So something to think about if you are a Solana fan. I want to thank our sponsors today, and of course, that's iTrust Capital. They do a ton of work around the crypto IRS space. You still have a few days left before you get into your 2021 taxes. If you do need a tax break, this is one of those ways that you can really take advantage of it. the cool thing is it's no more fees, so you don't have the monthly fees any longer. It's a 0.5% on trades within your IRA, and it's a great place to start one. You can start one for your kids, or you can start one for your, for other family members, your better halves, whatever it might be. There's a lot of different opportunities here. Just make sure and check the link below. Use our link because it helps out the channel, and obviously you get $100 of rewards back to you guys. So don't miss it. All right, let's jump into the next project, and that is Fantom. Now, Fantom is one that we've talked about many times here on the show. We like Fantom as an overarching project, and has been one that's kind of been up and down. Obviously, you've seen the last drama. We talked about it a lot, with their developer team and Andre, and where that was going to leave the brand of Fantom when you think about Fantom as a brand, but really more Fantom as the project. Very solid. And this last tweet, I just thought this was kind of indicative of where this project is going. Past 2 weeks, Fantom launches $335 million Fantom grants program. That's just building the roster. They've also announced this liquid staking. They also did the data hub, which allows devs to scale their Web3 stack. So that's going to make it even easier. And then they're doing AMAs, which I think is another element that a lot of these projects need to do, and that is be much more open about what's happening inside the projects. Now, the markets are going to have a certain effect anyway. Those kind of scenarios are always going to be in the market, both positive and negative. But what doesn't and what is not in the market all the time is the fact that you've got founders and devs that are open with what's happening, because that helps investors get behind projects. And I think that's the scenario with Fantom, that it will help them. Fantom Foundation, this kind of just reiterates the $335 million in their incentive program. And I like any project, but I think this is kind of stakes. The table stakes of today is that you do have to invest in your developer community and also in the growth of what it's going to be requiring in terms of getting dApps off the ground, and also just building a tech stack that is going to maintain itself for years to come. So I think Fantom's making a good move here with kind of moving in that direction. So grants for Fantom. Fantom is receiving a boost to its ecosystem. The grant is an initiative that allows builders to fund their open source projects to the benefit. And then you've got kind of their Gitcoin grants possible thanks to the Quadratic Funding Group. So I just think this is a really good thing. But we've seen other projects, I think really still to this day that the reason that Avalanche really kicked over and started doing a lot of great things was because they invested in their ecosystem through that Rush protocol and what they did with Avalanche Rush. And it kind of changed the destiny of where Avalanche was going. And we saw it really skyrocket because the more developers you have going, the more partnerships you're going to get going, because the more dApps you've got playing into the ecosystem. All of that just begins to snowball on itself. And I think that's the same kind of scenario. If you look at Fantom's price, trading at $1.16, man, this would be a beautiful buy at $1. Let's go over here and look at the month. You can kind of see it again, falling off right there. It's bounced off a little bit here. If you look at the floor right here, holding in at around $1.12. This may be one of those, again, that could be one of the best buys out there right now. Could it be a short-term gain on where this could go? If you look at the all-time on Fantom, you can kind of see it had some pretty amazing double peaks there. And I feel like it might be past its problem in terms of their developer issue now that they've kind of initiated this whole grant program. I think that's a positive thing. Now, of course, you've got to get past the market sensitivity that we're dealing with right now, which of course is inflation and kind of the whole issue around the global conflict scenario that we're facing. So the other one is Atom. Atom is adding liquid staking for 10% yields. This is kind of a Johnny-come-lately, I feel like, but we are at least seeing things happening around projects like Atom, because I feel like some of these projects are starting to get a little bit more air under them because they're doing certain types of strategies around staking and or different types of initiative that can really drive into the yield side of things for DeFi. And I think this is another one that kind of flows into that. The other thing with Atom is Binance is now supporting the Atom network on their upgrade. So this, to me, just goes further into where the growth of Atom is going, and it just further solidifies this as a long-term project. So again, playing in the right direction. Last but not least on my list is Ripple. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, why Ripple? Because it doesn't feel like it's that great of a buy right now. Ripple lawsuit updates provide little XRP price support. We've already seen this kind of happening. We haven't seen pricing moving yet. And again, I think that's suppression due to market right now and less so by what's been happening in the legal and the court battle between the SEC and Ripple. So I think there still is that pent-up demand of where this is going for Ripple. The bigger factor that really plays in this for me is the look of where XRP might be going on the global stage. If you think about what Jack Mallers said last week at the Bitcoin conference and the evolution of crypto payments, and not Bitcoin payments, because I think a lot of people misunderstood what he was talking about. He is talking about utilizing the Lightning Network as an infrastructure theme for payments. And that could be fiat, crypto, etc. The key is it circumvents the existing system that is running right now. And I did a number on this, and it was pretty astronomical. I think I calculated Starbucks average sales over the year and what they were spending, because they reveal their data spending for card services. So in other words, when you buy a coffee at Starbucks, you might use your credit card or your debit card. That goes against their annual sales, and it was around 890 million, I believe, in credit card sales, and it ended up being around 100 million in fees that they would save going through a network like this if they got to a critical mass point. So there's some real money on the table with these. Now, what does that mean for XRP? XRP could be, this could layer out a component, because if I was in XRP seed, and I'm thinking, all right, there's an opportunity here because I've already kind of secured my partnerships globally for moving big money through a Swift alternative. But what about with bank to bank or person to bank? Do I have the technology, of which I do, to be able to jump into that game and create something that is innovative and could start to address that, especially now that the genie's out of the bottle as to how payments and interactions with point of sale companies like NCR and all that. If there's companies out there willing to do that, then could XRP be kind of facing and pointing in that direction? That makes me think much more bullishly on XRP, more so than I have been in the past. And of course, don't forget, Michael Jordan now, NFTs coming to the XRP ledger. They're seeing incredible momentum in new use cases. I think we'll continue to see them branch out into their creator fund that is really going to just kind of reset the table where XRP could be in the next few years. Let's just forget about, the essence of global cross-borderless payments and think about XRP and Ripple being utilized in many other aspects of industries. So I think a lot of that is kind of pointing in the right direction. And if you don't believe me, and you kind of just have to follow the money. Here's a piece right here. Cathie Wood's ARK Investment dumps PayPal. Let's think about this for a second. And is now favoring Bitcoin-friendly Cash App. So if you follow the money and think, all right, here's one of the best investors in Wall Street, and PayPal is not a slouch. They're already active in Bitcoin. The fact that Cash App has made this deal with Strike and that they're utilizing the Lightning Network, they're starting to show the use cases to the rest of the industry. And I think investors are now starting to look at where this could go in a very short period of time. Because cash, especially if we look at card services and those merchant services fees that we're dealing with on an ongoing basis, especially on B2B, all of this leans into things around the XRP and Ripple ecosystem. I just wouldn't put it past them if we wouldn't see XRP make a play at where this might be going in the next, maybe in the next year, especially once they get past this legal issue with the SEC. So lots happening out there. Just to take a look quickly at the sentiment data. Let me jump over here real quick and we'll go to our top crypto. And this is our CPI. If you guys are new to the channel, we basically do a weekly analysis on sentiment data and amplification data on a variety of tokens. And we've added some new ones to the list this week, and we're growing these now. You've got Fantom now on the CPI, Near Protocol and FTX, and also Helium. Those are the 4 tokens that were added. We're going to continue to build this so that you'll be able to look at historical data on these as you need. And the cool thing is we update this on Fridays and on Mondays. So if I want to take a look at Solana, I'll jump over to Solana real quick and take a look, and you can kind of see market was indicating some downtrends slightly, especially on the overall. When I look at the overall sentiment right there, was sloping down as we moved into this market that we're faced with right now. And of course, that was leaning in really since the 1st, and then we saw the dump right here on the 11th. Same thing with sentiment, leaning downward. We had a little bit of a dip, which I think was an interesting sign that we might have been a little bit of a precursor to watching the market, and that was sentiment on Solana as it was flying up the charts. So that made me put the brakes on Solana early on, even though it did take another jump last week. And then amplification, same kind of scenario. It was tracking right with where sentiment was going on Solana. But what this tells me is that we probably still have a little bit more movement down for Solana. So it's a good potential to get Solana at maybe that price point that you might be looking to go to. Maybe we could see a $90 Solana, maybe an $80 Solana. That might be a good one to rein in. And if I look at Solana real quick, let's go to the Solana chart and see what that 1 month is. Yeah, it's got that potential of moving in there. So we're going to be watching this very closely. We update the CPI on Mondays and Fridays. So the next one we'll have is on Friday, but the Monday, obviously right now trending down in the marketplace. So definitely ones to watch. But those are the tokens that I'm looking for that could be short-term and also long-term holds for me. All of them are really great projects, and I've owned them at some point or another. I want to jump over to a poll because I want to see what you guys are doing in terms of market. All right. Are you buying any altcoins on this dip? Yes, 56% for long-term, and yes for short-term. And then also, no, you expect a bigger dip, 29%. That's good. So I think I'm feeling kind of the same way with you guys. I'm really dissecting where the market is because I feel like there are a couple of things that are in a position to buy, but I am very cautious right now because of what we're dealing with on other economic structures. We are doing another video just like this one of bargains to buy in the metaverse, so you don't want to miss that video coming up on the channel soon. Let's jump over to some questions and see what we can do. All right, Scarface, got all those coins except our XRP. XRP is a hard one if you don't own it. It's a hard one to get to unless you are international. If you are international, then there's plenty of places that you guys can get it. The Club NFT, Superfarm. We've talked about Superfarm before. Love what Elio is doing. And it's been in and out of our top gaming and crypto rankings throughout the past few months. It kind of shows up. It's kind of interesting how Superfarm shows up at very unique times. So we're always watching it, though. It's definitely in our list that we take a look at. Let's go here with AJ. I don't know. There's a slow, not developing narrative is coming for Polygon, but it's completely false. That the narrative is slow is what I think you mean. And I would say, yes, that is kind of the case for Polygon, but we just had their team on again, and I just see so much bullish case for Polygon on the NFT side and where Metaverse is going. This is still one of the best, if not the best, chain out there when it comes to the evolution of where Metaverse is going. So I'm still very bullish on Polygon. All right, Big Boss, Zilliqa Moon. Listen, Zilliqa, just an interesting project. One that I have completely exited on. I'm not holding Zilliqa any longer. And I was hoping and expecting to see Zilliqa do much better at their Metopolis event in terms of showing us some real use case, and even more so, a real solid roadmap. Neither of those happened. So just be cautious with that project. Jubilee, Bitcoin below 40K, hitting, yep, we're looking at people that are pointing at that direction. And I think, that's kind of the scenario. I think a lot of this is gearing up and leaning into what we're dealing with. I think though, this will be a short-lived dip, especially unless we see something major in the way of inflationary numbers. And I just can't imagine, even though the number they're claiming is probably going to be somewhere in the mid-8s, which would be pretty amazing. All right, Mr. Ether, I expect a bigger dip Bitcoin between 24 and 27. Some people pointing down that far. Evan Aldo was in our studio last week. That was his low, I think was 24. He had that on one of his worst case scenarios. So there are ways in which it can go there and then have that recovery that everybody kind of looks for when we see those big massive dips like that. So definitely one to take a look at. How good is BNB to hold? BNB is one of those kind of like ETH. It doesn't have necessarily the volatility, even though right now it is down considerably. But it is one that I still hold. I'm not in profit on on BNB, but it is one that I've held in the past. Would I go in and buy it right now? Let's take a look at where BNB is right at the moment. And we can kind of give you guys just a quick look. It's right at 400. So that's actually, it's been trading at the right spot. So if you look at the 1 month, yep. So this might be one of those that could be in a good position, but if you look at the short term, even the short term down at 331 was probably a better buy. Still not a great bargain for me, but if you're in it, obviously it's one of those times when you want to hold for sure. Okay, Moonbeam Glimmer. So we've had that project on our show before. I would check out the video. It was with one of their dev team, and Moonbeam does a lot of great projects. And I think with Glimmer and what they're trying to do, there are some very interesting things around the Polkadot ecosystem that I like. This one just has not got its legs under it yet, and I think it's still a little bit before we will see it happen. But there are some things. Again, Polkadot parachains, almost all of those projects have done very well, and I think most of them will. There will be some losers, though, so you can't necessarily completely put it off the potential that some of these projects don't make it out and into the next phases. All right, Cardano to hold. If you're in Cardano, I'm hoping you weren't. I hope you got exited out on this last high. But if you are in Cardano hard and you were in maybe low, would you hold? This is a tough one because Cardano, I have a feeling, is going to continue to see a little bit more penetration in terms of more pain for Cardano. Sentiment is not good on Cardano right now. Amplification is trending heavily down, so be on the lookout for that. Jeff Mine, your opinion on Hedera hash? I love HBAR. Another founder that we've had on or founder and CEO that we've had on the show before, Mance Harmon. They talk a lot. And of course, HBAR just also announced that they are doing some very cool initiatives on the metaverse angle, which I think is, everybody tries to go in this direction. But HBAR overall just has an absolutely stunning partnership array. And that's the one thing, along with kind of their unique blockchain, which is very unique. I would study HBAR if you are interested in that project. Maybe you'd never heard of it. Check it out. Just study it, really dive into it, learn a lot about what they're trying to do. I think it might surprise you on some of the things that they are doing. And it is one that I hold right now, and I'm probably going to, this is one of more of my long-term holding bags is Hedera. All right, good stuff. All right, definitely as we continue to watch, we'll be watching the markets very closely, continuing to take a look. We may even do an emergency update on Wednesday with Bitcoin on the CPI. So I'll get with you guys. We'll let you know. Either I'll tweet it or we'll mention it here on one of the shows. We do have a ton of interviews coming in this week as well, so a lot happening there. We'll try to get you a Bitcoin and Ethereum TA analysis this week. So there's a lot happening still, and the market is really sensitive right now. So just be on the lookout. Be very, very cautious in your investments. Do your research and make sure you understand the triggers that are causing these market moves to occur. All right, best thing you can do right now if you're listening to the podcast is jump over here to the YouTube channel. This is the place to catch all the charts and all the deep dives that we do, as well as the CPI. And the way to do that is just search Paul Barron Network. You'll find us. And of course, you want to catch me out on Twitter, it's @PaulBarron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.